Yesterday, I heard one of our elders ask a great question in a devotion he was sharing. He said, have you ever wondered what it would be like to live through the Spanish flu, the Civil Rights Movement, the Dust Bowl years, and the Great Depression? And if you've wondered that, then 2020 has been your year. And we all know that this has been a year unlike any other year that any of us have ever experienced. We find ourselves in the midst of this global pandemic. There's economic uncertainty. There's uncertainty about cases and testing and what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Is school going to start? Is it not going to start? And nobody really knows what's next. And just in case you happen to miss some of that, you can just flip on the news and we've got 24/7 coverage of everything that's happening, and you can get it from every angle. And I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too, that over the last few months, people are responding to all of this uncertainty in different ways. And in some ways, people are taking on different personas. They see themselves in these different roles that we're all sort of taking on, and most of us fit into one of these categories. And if you go through your Facebook feed or your social media feed, you'll see different people that you know taking on these different roles as we all try to navigate this uncertainty. So I made a list of some different personas that people have taken on over the last few months. And one role that people take on is the resident expert. These are the folks who read all the information, they watch all the news, and they think it's their job to inform everybody around them about what's really happening. And it could be that they agree with what's being told, it could be they see what's being told as fake news, but everybody's sort of giving their opinion. They're the resident expert on everything that's happening, regardless of the fact that they had never heard of the stuff that's happening prior to just a few months ago. Then there's some people who have taken on the persona of a rebel. Doesn't matter what anybody says, they're going to do their own thing. They don't care what any expert says. They don't care what anybody asks them to do. They're just going to do their own thing. Then there's some folks who have taken on the persona of an alarmist. Everything is bad, and somehow they even turn the good news into bad news. And they spend a lot of time asking the what if questions. What if this happens? What if things get worse? What if things never get better? What if this never ends? And it just goes on and on like that. Then there's some people, and you see this a lot on social media, who have turned into conspiracy theorists. They see a conspiracy behind everything that's happening, from the toilet paper shortage to the coin shortage, and everything fits into this larger narrative of somebody that's trying to take over the world. As we get closer to November, you're seeing people take on the persona of political warriors. And they view everything that's happening, from the pandemic to the economic uncertainty to the openings and closings, through a political lens. It's either right versus left or Republican versus Democrat. Something that's always been popular on social media, that's becoming even more popular today, are the armchair quarterbacks. These are the folks who are not doctors, they're not business owners, they're not political leaders, they're not really decision makers of any kind, and yet they have a plan for everything. And if we would just listen to them, everything would be fixed. And you probably have people that you're close to that fall into one of those categories. You might even tend to fall into one of them yourselves. And as followers of Jesus, I just want you to know, there is another option. There is another category. In the book of Acts, there's a guy named Luke who goes back and he tells the story of the early church, tells the story of the opening days of the church. And by the time you get to Acts chapter 4, the church is a few weeks old, it's growing, it's still getting organized. People are responding to the message, and they're getting organized to move forward to impact the world. There's one paragraph in Acts chapter 4 that I want you to listen to. Here's what Luke says. All the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all that there were no needy persons among them. For from time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales, and put it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to anyone who had need. So you have this picture. They're so committed to the message. They're so committed to loving each other and loving God and loving their community that they're doing whatever it takes to support one another, even if that means selling property and donating the money so that other people could have what they needed. But in the very next verse, right after that paragraph, Luke mentions this guy that's sort of one of these overlooked characters in the Bible. The people reading this in the first century would have recognized his name, but too often in our day, we read it and it's just one of these unnamed people. But I want you to listen to the way that Luke describes this guy. He has a nickname that's been given to him. I want you to listen to it. It says, verse 36 of Acts 4, Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, whom the apostles called Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, sold a field he owned, and he brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. So here's this guy named Joseph. He's a Levite, but his nickname is son of encouragement. He's known, first and foremost, above everything else, as an encourager. Wouldn't it be great if when this was all over, that's what we were known for? See, here's my guess. My suspicion is you fast forward a few months, maybe into next year, and the COVID-19 crisis is over, and everybody looks back and reflects on where we've been and what we've learned. My suspicion is that the folks who set themselves up as the resident experts will be forgotten. Most likely their predictions may or may not come true, but most likely they'll get part of it wrong. The people who viewed themselves as rebels, the folks who viewed themselves as alarmists, they may look back and they may have some regrets about some things they said and some things they did. The conspiracy theorists, when this is all over, you know what will happen. They'll move on to the next thing. It's always something else. The political warriors, both sides, will claim victory and they'll blame the other side, and then they'll move on. And the armchair quarterbacks will look back and they'll say, I told you so. If you'd only listened to me, things would have been so much better. But my question is, what are we going to be remembered for? I don't know about you, but if I could pick one thing to be remembered for through all of this, it would be as an encourager, a son or a daughter of encouragement. So I want to encourage you to spend some time over the next few days encouraging others. I want to issue what we're calling the 3-person challenge. Could you take 3 people a day, 3 different people, just do it for a week, and encourage them. Send them a note, send them a text, send them an email, call them, post on their social media, and just instead of pushing an agenda, instead of trying to explain everything that's going on, just offer some simple encouragement. And if you did that every day for a week, that would be 21 people. If you did it every day for a month, it'd be 93 people. And if you do that long enough, it could be that you find yourself picking up a different nickname. You might even be known as an encourager.